Hey guys, welcome back to the Calvinistic Contradiction. And today we're looking at where is Calvinism in Genesis 5 and 6. We've been going through this series of kind of saying if Calvinism is true, if it's biblical theology, and if biblical theology is indeed derived from the biblical text, then surely the tenets of the tulip systematic or the Calvinistic systematic, the doctrines of grace, all of these things would be found in the biblical narrative at the beginning of the Bible. And so we've gone through Genesis 1, through 2, through 3, through the fall narrative, through 4, Cain and Abel, and now we're coming back up on 5 and 6. And so we're going to be checking that out today. Check out the comment section. I have a question for you guys. I've been working on something. It's been a long process. It's been years in the making, but I've written a book in my host language here. And so now that I'm done that, I am turning towards more English and Calvinistic stuff that I've been wanting to write on for a long time. So I have an ebook in the works that I'm going to get to you guys. Any thoughts on a title? Type it down in there, and it's just highlighting the contradictions of Calvinism. I go through the Tulip systematic, and then I highlight the contradictions. And then I have a couple other ideas in the works for some cool resources to get into your hands. So check it out. And so let's get into Genesis 5. So I'm just using my book right here. Usually I'm using the screen, so I'm going to be looking down for a second, but just highlighted some stuff. So Genesis 5 talks about the descendants of Adam. And so we already talked about how Cain and Abel, if it's total inability, you are not able to come to the Lord, you're not able to have a relationship with the Lord after the fall in the Genesis 3 narrative. That's the Calvinistic worldview, that you are unable from birth before you're born, because God chooses whether you're going to go to hell or whether you're going to be saved before you're born in the Calvinistic systematic. And so, when you're conceived, before you're born, before the foundation of the world, he even chose this. And so it didn't match up with what we see with Cain and Abel. We see that God's actually in relationship with them. And even after there's Abel sins, he's not bringing the right thing to God, and he gets mad. And he's just like, hey, do the right thing and you will be accepted. And so Calvinistic system's not in 4. 5 is just the descendants of Adam. And it talks about all these generations up to Noah. And one thing I just want to point out here, because we won't go through it because there's not very much, it's just that, you know, Seth lived this many years, and he was the father of Enosh, and then he had sons and daughters. It says here. The one thing that I wanted to point out was Enoch. He's walking with God, and so you know, it doesn't say that God made him walk. It says that God took him with him because he was a righteous God who's walking with the Lord. But then he had sons and daughters. And his son, Methuselah, he had sons and daughters, which would be Noah's uncles and aunts and cousins. And then Lamech, he is the father of Noah. He has other sons and brothers and daughters, and he has sons and daughters. And so Noah has brothers and sisters. I think that's important because I never really thought about that much until I've been looking at this narrative. And then Noah has 3 sons. And so let's just, it says that in Genesis 6, let's go into that we have the whole Nephilim and, people having sex with spiritual beings, and we're not going to get into all that right now. We can get into that later, but this is really for the purpose of Calvinism, is that when the Lord saw that the wickedness of man had become great on the earth, and that every intent and thought of his heart was only evil continually, then the Lord God was sorry that he made man uh, on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. And the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the uh, will blot out man who I've created from the face of the land, from man to animal to creeping things to birds in the sky, for I am sorry that I have made them. Okay, well, God meticulously controls all things, all right, in the Calvinistic systematic. So why is God upset here? Is God's, you know, he's punishing himself because he made himself create man, and then he made man sin, and then because he made man sin, is God faulting himself here? He just says, "I'm upset that I made man." Why? Because the it literally says right there, every thought and intent in his heart was only evil continually. So is God saying, I made each one of these things, these puppets, these people, this clay to be only evil continuously? And I am upset at myself. This kind of gets into that divine, like, divine punishment of Jesus and all this stuff that Calvinism creates in the end. Again, we're not going to get lost in this, but like, I did it, and because for my supreme glory, I meticulously control every dust mite. John Piper says that. So I've continued can meticulously controlled all this rape and murder and torture and the blood that's crying out of the ground from from Abel until now is all me doing this, and I am mad at man, so I will wipe them off the face of the earth. Is that what this text is clearly saying? Because that's the purpose of our um, of this whole study, is if Calvinism is true, then where is it in this biblical text? And is this proof and evidence, clear evidence, clear and concise evidence that God, who meticulously controlled and made the world only evil continuously, and now he's upset at himself because he's going to hit the reset button? Is that what we're seeing here? Is this the coherent biblical truth that this narrative is telling us? And I would say no. This is bunk baloney sausage, which I say all the time. This is made up theology in the mind of a man, however many years ago, and perpetrated onto most of the church today. It's not there. You can go in there and say all that stuff that I said, but I would say baloney sausage. Again, not true. And so let's do the reverse. And so then, but where does it say here? No, the earth was corrupt in the sight of God. This is Genesis 6:11. The earth was corrupt in the sight of God. Well, no, God corrupted it. Remember this? This is a Calvinistic theology. Biblical theology says that God, um, now the earth was corrupt in the sight of God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked on the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all the flesh had corrupted their ways upon the earth. Who corrupted their ways? For all flesh had corrupted their ways upon the earth. Now, Calvinistic theology says this. Now, God made the earth corrupt in the sight of himself for his own glory. And the earth was filled with God's violence because he meticulously does it. And God looked on the earth, and behold, he had corrupted it. For all flesh he had corrupted their ways upon the earth. That's what Calvinistic theology is. I am not maligning. I am not, exaggerating here. I'm being facetious because it's that crazy. It is that wicked. It is that, far from, it's as far as the east is from the west from the biblical narrative here. The biblical narrative is very clear. Calvinism is not. It is not true. That's why I'm teaching you guys this. This is why I'm going over this, is because they are taking something from 1500 or whatever, however many years after the biblical narrative was finished, and then they're coming back 4,000 years and shoving it into this text, which isn't there. Now the reverse, if God did all the wicked, he meticulously controls all the wicked. Again, the rape of small children, Auschwitz, Birkenau, the killings of Dennis Rader. This is desiring God. This is a quote from Desiring God about Calvinism. So if he does that, well, then what about Noah? Righteous, right? God would have made Noah righteous in sight. God would have made him righteous, right? But then it says, um, and then God said to Noah, oh, wait, where's it say? Uh, these are the records of the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man. This is 9. I should have done this first. Sorry, guys. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his time. Noah walked with God. Oh, wait, and look, here we go. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. 8, I'm sorry about that. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So Calvinism should say, but God made Noah find favor in the eyes of the Lord. God, before uh, aeons past, he had chosen Noah to be righteous before he was, conceived in his mother's womb. But it says here, but Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And these are the records of the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his time. Noah walked with God. And Noah became the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And so, you know, we're just doing the reverse here, guys. We're just saying, okay, if God meticulously made the whole world corrupt, which is Calvinistic tulip theology, then, on the flip side, God makes man holy. He chooses. So he chooses, it's the double predestination, chooses for hell, chooses for heaven. And here, obviously, he chooses everybody to be destroyed. But, it says that this one guy, God must have, I guess, from Calvinistic theology, chose Noah uh, before he was born to be saved. Because I guess we're conflating salvation and this boat, which is an analogy to salvation, but it's not salvation itself. It's salvation from physical death, not spiritual death. And so I'll keep this one short because that's basically all we have to look at. We'll skip through not probably not skip through. We'll just cover probably like Genesis 7 through 10, maybe up to 11 next time. It's just the big, flood narrative and everybody gets wiped out. And then it's these 3 sons and the Noah story where he gets drunk and then something happens. My perception of that is that the he uncovers his father's nakedness, which in Leviticus says, you sleep with your your mom, your father's wife, and so the same. Do not uncover your father's nakedness, and do not sleep with your mother. And so I take those two things to be the same in that this guy came and tried to usurp the throne of the patriarch. And so we'll go over that all in detail later, but we'll go in that big chunk. But that's our question for today. Where is Calvinism in Genesis 5 through 6? Just as we didn't see it in 3, we didn't see it 1, 2, 3, we didn't see it in 4, we didn't see it in 5 and 6. When we get to 12, this is like the end of the beginning of the biblical narrative, basically. It's 1 through 12 is everything before Abraham. From Abraham until basically the New Testament is, all about the family of Israel and then the nation of Israel and all that stuff. So if Calvinism was true, surely it would be in these first 11 chapters before the foundation of um, Abraham and then into Israel. But it's not there, guys, because it's not true, because it's not biblical, because it is this systematic that was created later, way later than the biblical narrative is closed, and then it's stuck back in on the text heavily in the New Testament and sporadically throughout the Old Testament in these select passages. But we're telling you, and we're telling everybody in from this channel that biblical theology comes from the biblical narrative, the Bible itself. And so if these things are true, surely they would be here at the beginning, at the genesis of this whole narrative. That's what Genesis. It is the start of the whole narrative. They would be found true. They would be found faithful. They would be, heavily in these texts because they're doctrines and theologies that are going to be set up and paid off later in the New Testament. But it's the exact opposite, guys. It's God's provisional love for the whole world. It's God's, desire for every single human being to be a part of His family, like in Eden. That was the Edenic mandate, the Adamic mandate. These things are all paid off later with Jesus. And, it's just a big pile of bologna sausage. Again, it's just not biblical. And so, sorry, guys, if you're a Calvinist, I love you. I just want you to believe the truth. I want you to believe what's biblical, not what is John Calvin, not what is John Piper, not what is just, a theology and doctrine it's ripe for the trash heap. And so let's place it there and let's go back, read the Bible as a narrative, look at it in its ancient Near Eastern context, and let's keep on moving forward through the biblical narrative as we look for these contradictions in Calvinism. And so thank you guys so much for your support and for watching these videos. I will keep them coming. I'm trying to do more content for you guys now that I have more free time. And God bless you, and I'll see you soon.